Hello, and welcome to another episode of Unlock Your Soul Magic with Nikki Joshi. I'm here today to talk to you about the power and the magic, if I can call it that, of dopamine and how important it is to pay attention to the many ways you source dopamine in your life, especially if you are going through a big life transition, somewhere in this bridge space between I'm here today, I really want to be here, but are also often dealing with the baggage of past versions of you. And this could be true whether you're in the midst of a career change, as I've touched upon in recent episodes. It could be in the context of making a big leap with going from a job to a business or starting one, or just even the next evolution of your business. It could even be in the context of what has felt safe before in relationships with a partner, with a potential partner, um, actually, even with a child as well, and where you want to be in relationship to. It could even relate to how you connect to money as well. Oh, I have so many chills as I talk about that. This feels very universal. And when I sat with my guides to figure out what angles, what would be most helpful and would serve you all, it really felt universal and all encompassing. So let me talk about what spurred this conversation with you. And I'd love to give you some ways of thinking, some prompts to consider, and some next steps. Sounds like a work meeting all of a sudden in my head. But I promise it won't be so dry. I really intend for this to be thought provoking and illuminating for you. So I learned a lot about dopamine from a book and many coaches and healers in the past too. If I can find the name of the book, I'll link it here. It's been a while, but so much of our habit building and habit formation is driven by dopamine. And if you relate to being a high achiever or having big goals and dreams of any kind, you know how dopaminergic that can be, meaning it feels exciting to think about, it feels exciting to achieve parts of those, the many steps that it takes to get to closer to your dream or goal. And we are dopamine seeking individuals and beings and animals, really. And we seek it in so many ways nowadays through scrolling and all kinds of stimulants. And really, I would say every kind of screen that exists. Um, we get it through meals, we get it through, I know I get dopamine from eating out for sure. I get dopamine from meeting people and being part of exciting things, even at work, rewards. Dopamine is rewarding. Dopamine is the neurotransmitter, and I will caveat this with I'm by no means an expert on this topic, and I may not get the science always accurate or right, but I've done enough research on this that I feel, and also seen this with myself and many clients, that I know how dopamine can drive our behaviors in many unconscious ways. And the most powerful thing we can do for ourselves is to bring things into our awareness. And when we become conscious of how dopamine may be running or ruling our lives, that we can be so much more intentional and thoughtful about how we source our dopamine. Because there are definitely more healthier and life-giving ways to get dopamine, and then there are ways which can deplete us in the long run, even if they're super exciting in the short term. And this is where, everything from stimulants and drugs to alcohol and sex and more, and so many addictions stem from dopamine as well, and not sourcing it in a way that is life-giving and life-supporting for all parts of you. So, with that, how does that pertain to our lives and everything I said before about jobs and careers and relationships and money? Yeah, so how is this relevant to these journeys? Well, many times we are staying in state that is making us unhappy because there is some sort of reward, there is a payoff, there is a reason you stay in what feels comfortable and safe. And I invite you to notice if there's dopamine in there. Maybe you're staying in a current job that is slowly eating away at you because it's exciting, it's thrilling. There's a lot of like, oh, I get to be part of these meetings, or it's high visibility. And to really notice and pay attention to, is this truly serving all of my greatest intentions, my dreams? Do I see myself here 5 years from now? Is this supporting me in all aspects of my life? Yes, the job is a job and it can help us feel creative and fulfilled and whatever other values you have, but does it support you enough financially for the long run? Does it support you in terms of having the right social connections? Does it give you enough room to take care of, other aspects of you, like your health or hobbies or your relationships? And if it's taking away a lot of energy and time, then it's good to pay attention to if that dopamine is the healthiest source of dopamine for you in the long run. And how might you titrate or adjust that? Um, so often I feel like, and I'm going to use jobs and high achievers as an example, we can stay stuck. I will give my own personal example. I stayed for a very long time in a job in consulting that, oh my gosh, so dopaminergic. Like, oh, I have chills as I say it. It was so rewarding because the more you do well, the more responsibility, the more visibility, the more team members you have on your team who report to you. And as soon as you um, accomplish one milestone, like you deliver a big project, you successfully mentor a team, they get promoted, like you grow from there, you get more responsibilities, you have a P&L, like a profit and loss statement and budget you're managing of projects. Like, isn't that so cool and exciting? If I think of my younger 25, 30-year-old versions of me, it's like I get to manage a team and I get to be seen in this way and I get to be responsible. And it was just, there was always dopamine. Like, there was always a way where I felt like I was getting rewarded with a promotion, with recognition, with more responsibility. Felt dopaminergic in that season as well, when I didn't have too many other life responsibilities, and my health and body kind of took care of itself without much thinking. And uh, yeah, and I really enjoyed it for a while, and it really supported me in many ways, financially, socially. I met some of my bestest friends um, through work at the time, and yet it stopped being the healthiest source of dopamine after a while. Work got overwhelming, it got too pressury, it got to this place of I can't take care of other aspects of my life, like as a parent, as a human being, trying to get enough sleep, spending enough time with family. I wanted to explore this business here and with you all, and I wasn't getting enough time for that. And so it all led me to make what was a hard switch, really. And why do I say that? Because there was a lot of dopamine keeping me there. It felt very safe in that, well, if I stay on this track, like I'm always marketable and hireable. I know how to do this well. Why would I go to a place where all of a sudden in a new job I have to relearn relationships? I have to see if I can do a good job and prove myself, all these, performance anxiety type thoughts that can come in a corporate setting. And it can feel so hard to detach from a version of you in order to get to the next best version of you, just because there is so much not necessarily good. There's always, like um, shadow and light, positives and negatives, whatever duality language works for you in any situation in the present. But dopamine brings in attachment. And I mean, there's, of course, many more chemically good feely things like oxytocin and serotonin. And I'm not trying to do a whole dissertation on all of that and how they play with each other. I probably need to do some homework and remember some stuff and come back to you. But I just want to use dopamine as this example, which I think creates some separation. Like, oh, your brain fires in this way, it creates this kind of neural pathway. If I do this, I get rewarded. And just like any animal who you train with little treats and rewards to, like, not go here or do this thing, we are very much animalistic beings who use dopamine as a reward, and it gets triggered by many things in our present circumstances. And it's very hard to then detach from that and imagine and fall in and manifest or attach to a future state where some of these dopamine sources are unknowns, but we have dreams and goals for a reason. And I think the biggest advice I can offer at this point is, how can you make the journey to something that you really want to do but feels very hard to access more dopaminergic for you? What do I really mean by that? Like, how can you make the journey more fun? How can you make the journey more playful? How can you make the journey feel less of a chore and a burden, and even pulling you away from something that feels safe and familiar? It might look like, and it might look like finding a coach or um, some kind of support system. It could be a community or a group or some sort of membership where everyone's on the same journey with you, and being on calls or co-working sessions can really help you feel supported. Sometimes finding the right kind of coach, therapist, or healer who's on this journey with you also helps reinforce, okay, I'm not alone. I can do this. It can help really hold the vision of the future thing you're manifesting, whether it's a career, a relationship, more money, which can often be tied to something you do in our 3D Western world, that I'm speaking from at least. Um, so think about that. Think about how you might build in more dopamine in the journey itself rather than wait for it to come through at the destination. And especially when you're getting a lot of dopamine in the present moment, I really ask, if you are feeling that it's so hard to let go of where I'm at, or hard to let go of, like, the only way I know to do this is this X way because it feels familiar, but it really also rewards you in a certain way, pay attention to that. It's absolutely worth inquiring within yourself if the present day rewards are completely worth it for your future self. And would your future self value that? Or will it really wish that you had taken a few steps closer to this vision that you're calling in, this dream you're calling in? Maybe it's just even working some fewer hours at your workplace. Maybe it is experimenting with some creative practice or business. Maybe it is going out on a few more dates, to see if you meet that potential someone that you're calling in as a partner. Maybe it is working with your child on how can they learn to do some things more independently, as much as you enjoy the cute, lovely phase that is a little child who snuggles with you and spends time with you. Anyway, I say all that to say that um the attachment that dopamine can create is very real. The I use this word with care, addiction that dopamine can create is real. And this can be true even with meals. And how can you let go of the excitement that certain meals or even eating out? I will say personally, I'm trying to pay attention to how much I'm eating out. And yes, it's exciting to eat out, but sometimes it's not the best thing. It's not always like the healthiest oils or options. And to keep my health on track or to keep my budget on track, it's probably better if I cook a meal at home. And um, those, it's less accessible dopamine. So the other thing I encourage you to really think about is, how can you find sources of dopamine that require work and effort? And I think the book that I will um, reference talks much more deeply about this. But um, when we get what I believe the book references as cheap dopamine, like, eventually the payoff wears off. And so you kind of need even more dopamine and even more stimulation to get the same reward and high internally. And it makes such a big difference when I worked hard and then I received a reward. And so back to the eating out example, um, there's dopamine in eating for sure, especially when there's spices or it's flavorful, or there's sugar and fat and salt and all the things. I'm more a savory person than a sweet person, so just know that I think my go-to would probably be a bowl of yummy noodles than a bowl of ice cream. Might be my source of dopamine, probably with some soy sauce on it too. Um, but I say that to say like what's much more um rewarding and what's much more sustainable as a dopamine source is cooking that meal and then eating it, or some amount of effort that goes into it. And I again direct you to the book to learn more about this. But I think it's enough to say that think about how you might be keeping your life going. And I will say it's easy to numb yourself from truly what you need with cheap sources of dopamine, TV, and really in this world, all kinds of streaming videos and social media scrolling can be cheap sources of dopamine that can keep you in this, oh, I feel rewarded, so I must be doing okay. But the body is really using dopamine as a reward to manage the pleasure pain axis. And if you get too much pleasure without the pain, the brain kind of balances itself out, is was my takeaway from the book. And so it is actually healthy to have some struggle, to have some challenge, just enough such that then there's a reward at the end. And how can you think about your journey and your path and towards whatever you're manifesting with, okay, I put this effort and here's my reward. If I do this, I build a sales page online and it'll be ready. Or, okay, I know I have to get through this next iteration of a resume and I've been procrastinating because it's just feeling so hard and impossible. And I'm actually just feeling so comfortable. And here I am. Why should I really do all of that? But think about your future self. Think about what he, she, or they want and really need. And think about what's one step you can do today and really plan it as there is some effort to be put in, but there's also a reward. And if there's no inherent reward, like I'm just going to make version one of this resume and I'm not even going to send it, like write it on a to-do list and check it off. That's definitely a dopamine source for me. Mine is in Trello ClickUp, personally, very digital person. You could just plan for, okay, I'll do this and I'm going to call a friend or some other less cheap, more effortful, but not so. I'm not advocating for struggle, being on a struggle bus of getting dopamine. I'm also all here for us having lives that feel more easeful and aligned because we're listening to our intuition and all parts of ourselves, but much more integrated whole selves. So I say all that to say, please consider these two questions, see what comes up for you. I'm more than happy to continue the dialogue in the comments below if you're watching this, or you can always reach me through my email, hellosoul@nikkijoshi.com, and let me know what comes of these reflections. And with that, may you continue to find ways to detach yourself from cheap dopamine and find ways to source healthier, sustainable, and more aligned with your future or true self dopamine. Like you want to be rewarded for being your most authentic, true self. And may this conversation encourage you to do that. And if you feel called to explore more, know that I have a bunch of offerings on my site to really help tune into your truest self, unlock your soul magic. I'm in the process of, at the time of this recording, getting some Get It Done weeks. If you are an entrepreneur, solopreneur online that's very soul led, um, these offerings will deeply speak to you. And I'm trying to create a structure such that if you seek dopamine like me, um, neurodivergent brains, especially. Love that. And I certainly relate to that. Having things like a get it done week creates structure. And so that's something that I'm doing around all of my business course ritual offering. So if you're feeling the call, now is a great time. We're coming up on the solstice at the time of me posting this. So if you get in by then, you can be part of the business reconnection ritual toolkit, get it done week, and then there's more. So I encourage you to explore that. And if you're not a business owner, but are really keen on understanding this more deeply for yourself, maybe tuning into what's unique and right for you and need some clarity there, my one on one sessions are open. I'll have links below wherever you're tuning into this. Thank you for tuning in and thank you for receiving. May this continue to help you explore your deepest, truest parts of yourself. Thank you.